Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It's the 23rd of November. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information from the National Weather Service. We're always on the phone, 1-800-472-0391. Find us online at weather.gov/Alaska. And you can find me at david.snider@noaa.gov if you have any questions about any of our weather services, whether it's aviation, the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center's river information, or if you've got a question about sea ice. I'm happy to find the answers and direct you in the right direction. So please let me know what I can do for you, your family, and your community as best as I am able. Hazardous weather for the rest of tonight and into tomorrow. Nothing yet for southeast. We're going to be watching some of the winds there. And when we get to our marine part of the show tonight, pay special attention to some of the storm winds that are coming up as a large low is developing in the Gulf. So you'll see that here in just a minute. Across the eastern parts of the Kenai Peninsula, we're really just focused on the Portage Valley area on the other side of the tunnel from Whittier. Looks like the winds are going to come up here, and we have a high wind watch posted now for areas tonight and into, Saturday night and into Sunday for high winds as they come up to maybe 65 to about 85 miles per hour. Gusts now is what we're talking about for the Portage Valley area. So really just this spot right about here. And then for areas near Togiak and up into the Wood-Tikchik Mountains, expecting the possibility of about 6 to 8 inches of snow there. A winter weather advisory has been posted, and some of the winds as well may reduce visibility in that region. So keep that in mind if you're moving around the Togiak area or into some of the higher terrain around southwestern Alaska. Snow and wind will be coming up in your area. Here's a look at the satellite picture on this Friday. You can see a pretty decent storm spiraling in together there across the central Aleutians. This low is moving into the 960 range and is expected to deepen even more as it swings a little bit further south. It's going to grab another chunk of storm energy and zip that northward. And then this entire area is going to be under that control of this large low. Even if it's not directly right over the Gulf, it will have different pieces of that storm energy hovering around the Gulf, and several fronts will be moving north and east at times, making the winds come up, focusing rain across southeast, focusing rain and snow across south central and Prince William Sound, and probably moving a lot of wind across the interior. So this is going to be a pretty impressive storm system that's going to control a lot of Alaska's weather for at least the next 3, 4, maybe 5 days, well into next week for sure. You can see as we go through tonight, we've already got moisture lining up across Kodiak, parts of southwestern Alaska, and that's quickly moving northward. As we get into the next couple days, we're going to see a lot of that cloud cover moving north into the interior, and we're going to see a lot of the rain filling in across southeastern Alaska as the winds and seas come up underneath all of that cloud cover. So quite an impressive storm system that's just kind of hovering out here right now around Adak and Atka, but certainly reducing visibilities there and increasing the wind all the way around. It's down to 964 right now. Got another wave of low pressure just kind of forming across the northern Gulf, west of Yakutat and east of Cordova. A weak area of high pressure slowly giving up ground across the Yukon, and colder air is sitting up across the Brooks Range. Right now it looks like most of that's kind of sitting still, but we do have snow that's formed across southwestern Alaska and rain all the way from the Alaska Peninsula toward Kodiak Island. As we get into tonight, it looks like this first piece will organize a little bit more to about 969 millibars. You can see the main core of this is down to about 965. We're going to get some pretty good south winds up across the southeastern part of the state. Showers just offshore of Sitka up toward Yakutat, and clouds will start to fill in elsewhere across the Panhandle. For south central, looks like we'll see some higher terrain snow around Kodiak Island, Lake Iliamna, all the way down toward Port Huyton in the higher terrain there. The main focus of snow, though, will probably be a little bit closer to Togiak and some of the higher terrain, as I was just talking about, with that winter weather advisory. It could give you about 6 to 8 inches of snow. The next low, the main parent part of the storm, is bringing in those southeast winds to the central and eastern chain. A front sitting across the southern Bering, keeping a lot of that cold air from working its way into the Aleutians just yet. A look up north shows that tight packing of pressure gradients there. With that, we expect to see at least a little bit of snow and blowing snow, probably a little more wind than snow actually falling in the region. And you can see the snow spreading into Norton Sound there, where the ice has been building in at the sea surface fairly quickly in the last couple days. Snow showers west of that into the open waters of the Bering and over the the Bering Strait region. You'll notice by Saturday, the low pressure is moving northward, and again, that front is focusing that storm energy closer to the coastline just a little bit more and a little bit more. And Sunday, not a whole lot of change. The frontal position will probably change a little bit from what we have right here, but this is our best guess for Sunday afternoon. The front sitting right across Bristol Bay, close to the Alaska Range, and maybe close to the coastline for southeast. Again, that keeps southeast in that prime position for wind and for rain, probably some higher terrain snow, but this is going to be warming up as the day goes on, so that snow level should be climbing as we go. For the Alaska Range and Parks Highway especially, it looks like we will get some wind, but you're also going to get that snow changing to rain as we go through the day, Saturday and into Sunday. So a lot of warm air building in behind this. Snow and blowing snow for parts of the Koyukuk Valley and the upper Kuskokwim, probably into the Norton Sound region, Seward Peninsula there, as that main weather maker moves out of some of the higher southwestern terrain and moves into more of the west coast. And once again, that blowing snow will still be a problem for many along the Brooks Range passes and probably even the eastern Beaufort Seacoast as we get through your Sunday. Let's take a look at temperatures here quickly. For Saturday morning, things are warming up for southeast, lower 30s for many in northern southeast, the southern panhandle back in the mid-30s. Prince William Sound temps in the 20s. Same goes for most of Cook Inlet there, 35 in Kodiak, about 1 above 0 for Fairbanks, 11 below for Fort Yukon, and 23 below for Arctic Village. You're looking at 15 to about 25 below for the North Slope. Kotzebue Sound temperatures above 0, 7 in Nome, single-digit territory for the Yukon Delta region and the Kuskokwim Delta. You're looking at about temperatures in the mid-teens to mid-20s there. Bristol Bay probably just below freezing as well. 30s and 40s for the Chain, 34 in St. Paul, up to almost 40 there by Saturday afternoon. The Middle Tanana Valley back in the lower to mid-teens, 8 degrees in Eagle. South Central, you're expecting to see temperatures come up above freezing as we go through Saturday afternoon. Prince William Sound, mid to upper 30s, even almost 40 degrees for Cordova, 41 in Kodiak, and closer to the 40-degree mark for southeast as well. Kotzebue, you're looking at about 3. For Sunday morning, expect temps pushing into the upper 30s and low 40s for southeast, so still warming up. South Central temperatures in Prince William Sound back in the upper 20s to lower 30s, so getting very close to that freezing point. Almost 40 in Kodiak. Southwestern temperatures in the 20s and 30s. As you get west of Sand Point, you're 40 degrees or so, or at least very close to that mark. 32 though in St. Paul and St. George. Low 20s for Macquarie, 25 around St. Lawrence Island. 3 below for Ambler, Arctic Village about 16 below, and anywhere from 10 to about 15 below for most of the North Slope as that cold air just stays north of the Brooks Range. As we get into Sunday afternoon, you see temperatures recovering a little bit up north. 5 below around Utqiagvik, 8 above for Bettles. It looks like Fort Yukon comes up to 18 in Eagle, 9 in Northway, and teens and 20s around the Middle Tanana Valley. Fairbanks only 18 though, and temps in South Central blossom into the 40-degree range or so, 42 around Homer, 45 in Kodiak, Prince William Sound in the upper 30s and 40s, and look at southeast, even in the mid-40s to upper 40s around Sitka, Ketchikan, and Annette, so very warm air building in there, and teens and 20s for many in southwest and Bristol Bay. Sand Point closer to 43 degrees with Dutch Harbor and Unalaska at about 43 as well.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to aviation weather now, IFR conditions should be found across the Alaska Range into parts of the southwestern Capes and south of Nunivak Island. Southeast should start out generally clear with VFR sailing at least, and then up across the middle and upper Yukon Valley, generally VFR there into the Kobuk and Noatak as well. North of the Brooks Range passes, we expect to see a wide area of MVFR, and as we go through the afternoon, that's probably not going to change very much, but do expect to see developing areas of IFR across the higher terrain and close to Juneau and the Haines and Skagway regions all the way down toward Hyder. For IFR conditions there, the lower terrain and the inside passage will look like MVFR should be settling in throughout your Saturday afternoon. As low pressure organizes and moves into the Gulf of Alaska, the northern Gulf and eastern Gulf are going to kind of take it on the chin a little bit more for low conditions, so be prepared for those changes as we get in through the rest of the weekend. IFR conditions also expanding across west and southwestern Alaska. Widespread marginal conditions for most of the Bering Sea all the way through the Bering Strait. The Chukchi coast has IFR just offshore, but you'll see some VFR conditions in Kotzebue Sound. By Sunday morning, IFR is spreading northward of St. Lawrence Island all the way to the southern Seward Peninsula coastline. The interior of Seward Peninsula should be VFR. Look for marginal conditions at best around Prince William Sound and the Kenai Fjords area. On the Cook Inlet side, though, it looks like we'll start to see a little bit more VFR after a decent round of fog as we started this morning. MVFR and IFR conditions spreading eastward again into southeastern Alaska. Look for expanding areas of IFR across some of the higher terrain in the morning and some improvements by the afternoon. But you can see by Sunday afternoon, there's that blossoming of IFR conditions through most of the Gulf, Kodiak Island, some of the Aleutian chain south of Lake Iliamna and into the King Salmon region, and then all the way up into the Copper River Valley with MVFR at least across Cook Inlet, the Parks Highway system into the Glen Highway area, and certainly in the northern passes as well as the Middle Yukon Valley and the West Coast. So a lot going on. As we go into Saturday, look for your past conditions in Anaktuvuk to be VFR, but again, just north of that, widespread MVFR there, and for Adigan Pass, don't expect a whole lot of changes in that direction. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we expect to see IFR. Same goes for Rainy Pass throughout your Saturday. Windy Pass probably leaning toward IFR as the day goes on, and expect similar conditions there is in Isabel Pass, marginal conditions to start. VFR right now for Mentasta Pass, and Teneda Pass will start that way but lean over to MVFR. Portage Pass looks to be IFR as we go through your Saturday. Chilkoot and White Pass probably leaning toward IFR by the end of your Saturday afternoon. Here's the freezing levels. The surface freezing line is kind of nudging northward just a little bit, but aloft we're seeing warmer air building in as that surface low is organizing there and deepening as it moves into the Gulf. So 2,000-foot freezing line close to Sitka, southward toward Ketchikan and Metlakatla, and you can see the 2,000-foot line there just south of King Salmon and a little bit closer to Port Heiden there. Again, and just south of Kodiak Island as well. Icing potentials there. We're going to have some snow production here in Southwest, so I kind of cut this back a little bit, but you'll notice about 3,000 to 6,000 feet. It looks like isolated moderates possible across a good southern third of Alaska, all the way from southeast to south central and into the Aleutian chain, generally south of Hooper Bay and Macoriuk, above 3,000 to about 6,000 feet for that isolated moderate threat. The jet stream is consolidating as well. We're getting a really strong push of Pacific air moving across the North Pacific now. 110 to 150 knots coming in from the west and southwest and then bending into the Gulf of Alaska. Here is our most recent circulation. As that's moving into the west coast, it's going to make room for a much more powerful system to organize here across the Gulf, and you can see that happening already at 9,000 feet. Strong southerlies working their way into the Alaska Peninsula, 25 to as strong as 50 knots there coming in from the south. Low pressure across southeast also dragging in that drier, colder air across the eastern Gulf Coast. Winds are generally light across the interior tomorrow. We still have a northeasterly flow coming down the Chukchi coast at about 15 to 20. At 3,000 feet, it's a little bit stronger here around Kaktovik at 30 knots. Light easterly winds blowing in from Canada across the interior, about 10 knots there. And then here's our stronger flow again, 35 to as strong as 50 knots coming in from the south. Even stronger winds on the west side of the system. And our exiting weather maker here across southeast, about 25 knots, generally dragging in northerly winds. So turbulence, we're going to start watching some of that northern Gulf Coast barrier jet below 5,000 feet. Some of that might start to tap into that isolated severe, but generally widespread considerable moderate across most of southeastern Alaska, most of the northern Gulf Coast, south central Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, all the way up through Lake Iliamna and our southwestern capes, the central and western chain, and also across the western end of the Brooks Range and St. Lawrence Island. So plan for some bumps tomorrow.
Dual polarization technology is a major upgrade to the current radar system. It allows forecasters a better idea of what's actually out there and can help keep you safe.
Current radar technology transmits and receives information in the horizontal direction, which is very limited. Dual polarization technology, in addition to the horizontal, transmits and receives vertical energy, which allows forecasters to get information about the size, shape, and phase of the precipitation. We can use that information to better determine the precipitation type to expect at your given location.
There you have it. This new technology is currently being installed in radars across the country and is already being used by National Weather Service forecasters to produce better, more accurate forecasts. Learn more here and follow us. Want to know about the future of weather radar? Well, the National Severe Storms Lab has it here with its new phased array radar. Let's check it out.
It's a non-moving radar. It has 4 faces of the antenna, each pointing in different directions. One of the big advantages is that we're seeing so far, it can sample the area around the radar in less than a minute, maybe even a half a minute. And this is 5-6 times faster than what they can do today.
NSSL is leading the development of future weather radar with this project. Learn more here and follow us. The Storm Prediction Center is one of the NOAA weather partners. They are located in the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Greg Carbon gives us a glimpse into what the SPC does.
Our mission is to analyze and forecast severe thunderstorms and the potential for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds from those thunderstorms across the lower 48 states, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. One of the primary missions of the Storm Prediction Center is the issuance of severe thunderstorm and tornado watches across the country when conditions appear to be coming together to support the development of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes.
The world-class meteorologists in the Storm Prediction Center specialize in severe weather and keeping you safe. Learn more here and follow us.
The National Severe Storms Lab is working on increasing the lead time for severe weather warnings. The national average for tornado warnings is currently 13 minutes, but more notice would be helpful, especially for those in charge of moving large groups to shelter. Warn on Forecast will help forecasters issue hazardous weather warnings earlier. The project will give them more info about the chances of strong winds, large hail, and even tornadoes.
Currently, warnings are created by forecasters looking at the atmosphere outside, understanding its volatility, and then comparing that to how they see the Doppler radar presenting what's going on inside thunderstorms. Warn on Forecast is an idea where we're going to take the massive amounts of satellite, radar, and surface data and stick them all into a very high resolution prediction model. And then by producing new forecasts every 15 or 20 minutes, the forecasters hopefully will be able to use that model to produce warnings that extend out to an hour.
Before the National Weather Service can use this tool, it must be developed and tested. One big challenge will be deciding how to get the model predictions to the forecasters.
I'm going to keep this one very low. I'm just adjusting the track.
These hazardous weather prediction models are going to produce a huge amount of output. And this fire hose of data is just too much for forecasters to handle in real time quickly. So in order to help deal with that, NSSL has developed a related project called Facets. And Facets is the methodology which will enable forecasters to focus very quickly on the most important threats.
Once Warn on Forecast and Facets are proven to be reliable and effective, then forecasters will be better able to inform you of threats nearby. Learn more here and follow us.
The Hazardous Weather Test Bed is located at the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. It is used for experiments that will allow forecasters to learn and apply new technologies.
The Hazardous Weather Test Bed is a really unique space throughout all of NOAA. And this is where the researchers and the operational folks come together in a common space to solve operational problems and to test new research tools that the research community is working on. The goal is to accelerate the transfer from research to operations of the newest tools and techniques.
People come from around the world to collaborate on this unique project.
We can bring together not only NOAA people, but also university people, faculty, researchers, private sector meteorologists, folks working in other countries in meteorology, forecasters, can all come together and focus on what the problem of the day is with the forecasters.
Each spring, several experiments occur in the hazardous weather test bed. Learn more here and follow us.
What are you looking at? And what are you ignoring? Did you notice the NOAA logo in the corner? Forecasters have a lot of information in front of them too. Every second counts during severe weather, and decisions about where to focus are constantly being made. This could be even more challenging in the future. Phased array radar will produce 4 to 6 times more information than what we have now, which brings us to the question researchers are hoping to answer. Will more radar information affect forecasters' decisions?
From our past experiments, we've learned a lot about how forecasters think during the warning decision process, but we've also learned that those thought processes are very complex, and for that reason, we need a better way to be able to track forecasters' cognitive activity.
Inbounds and possibly golf ball sized hail.
An eye tracker is a piece of technology that is used to determine in real time where someone's eye gaze is located. And these eye trackers are typically video-based, which means a camera sits below a computer monitor, and with infrared light and vector analysis, we can determine where a person is looking and how their eyes are moving.
Eye tracking is already being used in the medical field and air traffic control. Using similar research methods, NSSL is discovering the benefit for weather forecasting too. Phased array radar will give forecasters a lot more to think about. Understanding their decision-making process will help researchers develop even more user-friendly tools. So what's the benefit for you? Even better weather warnings. To learn more, check us out online and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
On to your sea ice update now. Beaufort sea ice not changed very much, but you'll notice some marginal ice pushing westward down the Chukchi coast, and that coastal ice is filling in a little bit more from Point Lay down toward Point Hope. Still a pretty broad area of open water and very low concentration ice there, but the marginal ice zone is expanding south, east, and west from the main pack, and you can see a lot more growth inside of the upper end of Kotzebue Sound, inside of Norton Sound, and all the way down the YK coastline. That's today's edge, but if you want to take a look at the winter outlook for the next 2 to 3 months, make sure you head to weather.gov/Anchorage/ice and click on the outlook there. A little light reading there, get some leftovers and enjoy, and see what's coming up for the rest of the winter as far as sea ice is concerned for your community. Let's take a look at southeast now. We were talking about the winds coming up in the inside passage, about 10 to 30 knots with gusts of 40 down around Clarence Strait. All of this coming in from the south and east. The outer coast winds will come up sharply tomorrow. As we get into Cross Sound, northward toward Yakutat and outside of Cordova, you're looking at about 40 to 50 knots, and seas around 14 to as high as 21 feet outside of Prince William Sound and the Hinchinbrook entrance. Notice the seas coming up even more into this orange color, which up on our scale here gets us to about 25 to, well, probably about 27 feet over the open water, though, the Gulf. As we get into Sunday, though, that area is shifting north and east, closer to the coastline. Seas coming up to about 20 to 25 feet in some areas, and winds up to about 40 to 45 knots sustained. On the inside, you're looking at 20 to 30 knots with gusts to 35 around Stevens Passage, still coming in from a south and southeasterly direction. For south central, even higher winds. Storm force there outside of Hinchinbrook entrance on Saturday, all the way down past Resurrection Bay and into the Barren Islands, 50 to 55 knots. The northern end of Cook Inlet, not as bad, 35 knots with a 6-foot sea, and easterlies inside of Prince William Sound with seas coming up to 9 feet. Seas in the northern and western part of the Gulf anywhere from 25 to about 31 feet. So plan for some sharp changes in the weather. As we get into Sunday, outside of Prince William Sound in the northern Gulf, you're looking at about 20 to 30 foot seas, 45 to 55 knot winds from the east and southeast. Inside of Prince William Sound, this is going to be a lot stronger there, and coming into Whittier, you should certainly pay attention to this, with easterlies inside of Prince William Sound to 50 knots and 13-foot seas are expected there. So storm force winds in the region, and north and easterly winds in Cook Inlet 35 to 45. Strong gales expected there with 7 to 17-foot seas coming down Cook Inlet on Sunday. For Bristol Bay, look for easterlies there, 20 knots, 5-foot seas. Northeasterly winds in Shelikof Strait, 14-foot seas there, 11 to 18-foot seas across the north and western Gulf, 20 to 25, 30 inside of Shelikof Strait. For Sunday, the highest seas still well east of the region at this point, 30 to 35 knots in all of the area. You're looking at 13 to 15-foot seas in the north and western Gulf, 16-foot seas east of Kodiak Island, and a northwesterly shift there north of Sand Point and Cold Bay with a 10-foot sea expected on Sunday. For the chain, the strongest winds and highest seas will be out in the west. Look for 35 to 40 knot winds on Saturday. 20-foot seas thereabouts with a north and easterly wind for the central and eastern chain. 25 to 30, looking for 8-foot seas north of Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, and 14-foot seas south of Adak and Atka with that 30-knot wind. On Sunday, you'll see a little bit more of a northwesterly shift as that low pressure system is still pulling east and north a little bit more. A north and westerly wind from Adak all the way out toward Attu, 20 to 25, 12-foot seas there. For the areas on the Bering Sea coast for the central and eastern chain, 13 to 14-foot seas, and as high as 17-foot seas there south of Nikolsky as you get into your Sunday. For the west coast, north and east winds out of Norton Sound and the west coast, 25 to 30 knot winds, and about 9 to 12-foot seas from St. Paul, St. George, and up to St. Matthew. As we get into Sunday, look for that wind to shift a little bit more to the north around Macoriac and Utolan Strait, northwesterlies for St. Paul and St. George, and anywhere from 6 to about 12-foot seas in general, 4-foot seas forming over the ice now in the open waters there in Norton Sound, 25 knots from the northeast on Sunday. Northeast winds on the Beaufort Seacoast, 10 to 15 are expected on Saturday. Stronger winds off of Cape Lisburne and Point Hope up to 35 with 12-foot seas there on Saturday. For Sunday, a much stronger flow developing, 30 to 40 knot winds, still offshore, anywhere from 11 to 13-foot seas there, and 20 to 30 over the Beaufort Seacoast from the north and northeast. Recapping tonight's weather, a fairly sizable and strong storm is building off the central Aleutians and will swing into the Gulf, reinforcing periods of moderate to heavy rain across southeast and snow changing to rain across south central. All areas along the north and eastern Gulf Coast will experience some strong winds. High wind watches posted for the Whittier area or not for Whittier, but for the Portage Valley area, and winter weather advisories continue for southwestern Alaska as we go into your Saturday. Thanks for watching. See you right here again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.